What's going on, everybody? It's your man Louie T here for the Louie T Network podcast, Late Night Louie edition. A lot of topics to get to. We are on the eve of NFL schedule release Wednesday. This one is going to be really interesting. They've already given us a few of the games throughout the course of the season, a number of week 1 matchups, a couple of week 2 matchups. So we've got a little bit to chew on. So we'll talk about some of those things. Some big money dished out to a couple of big name players. One in particular that could have a ripple effect on how some of the quarterback negotiations will go moving forward for some other teams looking to ink deals with players who have contracts coming up. So a number of conversations we'll have tonight. We'll delve into other things that have tentacles that can be, kind of far-reaching, and we'll get to a bevy of topics tonight, including the NBA playoffs, as we usually do to start the show off. And hopefully your Mother's Day weekend was outstanding. We'll get to all of that and then some here on the Louie T Network podcast that starts now. The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description. Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to the 418th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Jam-packed show tonight. Got a lot to get to, so we're going to dive in right away. I will say that I'm looking forward to the NFL schedule release tomorrow. We'll, of course, throughout the course of the day, you're going to get a ton of leaks. And, again, all of this is strategically done by the NFL. You'll get the full schedule release 8 o'clock Wednesday night. By that time, everybody will be all over it, and we'll be able to discuss it. I'll be talking about the Commanders' schedule in particular Wednesday night. Thursday, we'll come back. We'll talk about the entire league's schedule, the primetime schedule, notable games. Obviously, they've hit us with a few of those already. We'll discuss that tonight. And then I also have a special guest for you guys on the podcast on Thursday. So looking forward to that as well. So Thursday will be a really, really big show. It'll be an excellent show. I'll be looking forward to that when we get there. So let's talk about the NBA playoffs first. Then we'll get to the weekend that was briefly. Matter of fact, let's do that first. I hope Mother's Day weekend was really was good for everyone. For those who have lost their moms, hopefully it was a day of remembrance and a day that you were able to get through and remember the good times and not feel the loss as much. I have a buddy of mine that I always try to check in with on Mother's Day. He lost his mom about maybe 4 years ago. So, it's always tough, Mother's Day is. So for him in particular. So I always try to be very cognizant of that with those who may have lost their moms. But it was a really good weekend. We cooked out. We had a good time, enjoyed the family. For those of you who have told me to get into X-Men 97, I started it this past weekend, and I'm only 3 episodes in, and I'm already hurt because they took Storm's power from her, and she's gone now. And I was hurt by that. I'm not even gonna front. I was feeling some type of way. And then I talked to somebody who is a bit deeper into the X-Men 97 game. He's like, bro, that's just the beginning of it. If you hurt by that, you in trouble. I'm like questioning whether I even want to watch this joint now. Like I was really in my feelings when Storm got right. Of all of the characters that could have got, they got Storm. But I know that this is a lot more closer to the comic book because even in this iteration, you get the relationship between Magneto and Rogue. A lot of people don't know about that existed, because they never really, if you watched the X-Men show back in the day, they never really touched on that. So to see them kind of showing you where that's going, and kind of, them talking about it, letting you know that there's a past there, that was pretty dope. I also like how it updates the intro to the show as the characters change. So the very first episode had Professor X, which, the show starts with his death, right? Them kind of recapping his death, and talking about that and where it left the X-Men, and how Cyclops was kind of in charge, and yada, yada, yada. And so he was in the intro, right? And then after that, Magneto comes at the end of the, look, spoiler alert. I'm not going to say too much more, because I got into it late, and I know there's some of you who still haven't watched it that plan on watching it. I don't want to tell you too much, but I'll just say this. Magneto comes at the end of episode 1, and then he takes Xavier's place, Professor X, in the intro on the second episode. And then after Storm has her powers taken, she's taken out of the intro, right, altogether, which I thought was dope. Like, she's not going to be a part of the show really anymore, so they don't just have random, they don't just have everyone in the intro if they're not going to be a major part of the storyline moving forward. So I'll be tracking that as we continue to move forward. But anyway, I digress. So let's get to the NBA playoffs, man. We are exactly where I thought we would be in these series, with the exception of Nuggets and Timberwolves. I thought it would be a competitive series, but I thought that the Nuggets were the better team before the series started. And obviously, after the first 2 games, I did not think we would be where we are now, which is tied at 2. Game 5 is taking place as we speak right now. No team has won a game at home in this series. So this has been a weird series with the Timberwolves and Nuggets. So we'll see if that trend continues in game number 5. Meanwhile, and we'll come back to that series. Meanwhile, I just want to update you on where all the series are, and then we'll come back and talk about all of them in particular. Meanwhile, in the Indiana Pacers Knicks series, which is the game we just finished watching, Knicks just took a 3-2 series lead. No home team has lost in that series, so no road games have been won by either of the 2 teams there. I said before the series started, I thought the Knicks would take care of the Pacers in 6. They have a chance to do that in 6. They are capable of going to Indiana and winning. They almost stole game 3. They got their asses handed to them in game 4, just like they returned the favor here in game 5 to the Pacers. After watching the way this series has gone, I think we're going to end up going to 7, but I wouldn't be shocked if New York went to Indiana and won game 6. We'll come back to that series here in a second, but that's now 3-2 by way of the Knicks. 30-point victory tonight, whatever that number was. They beat the brakes off of the Indiana Pacers tonight, returning the favor from the Sunday beatdown that was executed by the Pacers. So the Celtics have a chance to close out the Cavs, and I said that I wanted to see the killer instinct from the Celtics. I'm still waiting. I still don't trust the Boston Celtics. I've said this already. Now, losing Porzingis definitely didn't help their situation, but they lost game 2 at home to the Heat before Porzingis got injured. So let's not make this out to be a Porzingis thing. Now, if he were healthy in this Cavs series, do the Cavs win a game? Maybe not. I don't know. But this trend has been something that has been pretty prevalent throughout this series, this run here with the Celtics in the postseason with Tatum and Brown, and that's losing games at home. They don't protect their home court, and they've lost a game at home in each of the first 2 series. They have not lost a road game yet. They've had a pretty easy, to me, journey thus far with no Jimmy Butler in the first round, and then this series, no, they pretty much haven't had Jarrett Allen have the Cavs, and then no Donovan Mitchell either. And that game was way too close without Donovan Mitchell in the lineup. But I've said this, me and my dad talk about this all the time, and Boss Man is pretty adamant about this, and I tend to agree with him. Teams have a letdown. They tend to have a letdown. There's this tendency to overlook a team when their best player isn't in the lineup. And you see it happen all too often. The rest of the team, kind of takes the challenge of stepping up because they know that they have big shoes to fill. Their best player isn't in the lineup. Everybody's got to chip in. But I think the opposition kind of takes their foot off the gas pedal. Instead of going out with the mentality of, hey, we need to kill these boys, like put them out of their misery early, they come out thinking, hey, we got these boys. They don't have their best player. There's no way we're losing this game. And instead, you get a fight. And oftentimes you see teams lose that game without, when they're playing against a team without their best player. But the Celtics were able to get it done. I think they're going to close out the series in 5, which is what I said before the series started. I said, if they really wanted to show me some KI, sweep them. The Cavs aren't on your level. Sweep them. But they don't have that KI. They don't possess that to me. So it'll be 5 games, and that's cool, right? And then you get to the other series, and it's the OKC Dallas Mavericks series, and that's knotted up at 2. And each team has split on their home court. So that series is a little unique in that all the other series, either there's no wins at home, as in the case of the Timberwolves and Nuggets. The Pacers, no one's lost at home. Pacers, Knicks, no one's lost at home in that series. And in the Celtics series, they've suffered the lone defeat at home, but they haven't lost on the road this postseason yet, have the Celtics. The series with OKC and Dallas, they've both split in each other's gym, so you have no idea what's going to happen in Game 5. I still think the Mavericks are going to win that series. And let's start there. The Mavericks just blew a golden opportunity, and if they lose this series, you'll look back on Game 4 and say that's the game that we needed to win, and we didn't. You had an opportunity. The game was right there for the taking. Luka went to the line with a chance to tie the game up, potentially send it to overtime, depending on what would have happened on that final possession of regulation. Steady misses one of the free throws. They ultimately go down and lose the game. But that was the story of the game, and I was live kind of talking about that. The free throw discrepancy in terms of made free throws. That both teams shot roughly the same amount of free throws. I think Oklahoma City was something like 21 of 22 in the game from the stripe. Meanwhile, the Dallas Mavericks were like, I believe, like 12 of 23 or something like that. They missed like 10 or 11 free throws. And ultimately, Luka missed the biggest free throw of the game. And that's what costs you in playoff basketball. I talk about it all the time. It's the little things in playoff basketball that matter. During the regular season, you lose a game by 4, you missed 8 free throws. You look at it, you say, hey, we got to be better, and you move on to the next game. That's not how it works in the playoffs. Like, you turn the ball over like the Pacers did tonight, and you're going to lose the ball game. You get beat up on the boards like the Pacers did tonight, you're going to lose the ball game. And those are things that you point to and you look at and you have to clean up and you make adjustments to do so. You got to make free throws. Just like I talk about, cherishing the possession of the basketball in postseason, you have to make your free throws. And the Mavericks did not, and that's why they lost Game 4. Now they go back to OKC, pivotal Game 5. Generally, the team that wins Game 5 wins the series. I don't know who's going to win that game. That's the one series right now where I still don't have a great feel for what ultimately is going to happen. I picked Dallas before the series started. I'm not moving off of that spot. I still think they're the more equipped team to move forward. But Luka's going to have to play better. They're going to have to make shots, and they're going to have to make their free throws, right? They're going to have to play like the team with the more, most experience in that series. But OKC's been game. They've hung tough. But again, they're a young team and they're inexperienced. And I felt like it would catch up with them in this particular series. If they were to advance to the Western Conference Finals, I'd be amazed. I'd be shocked. I'm not going to lie to you. I didn't expect them to get out of the second round, no matter who they played, whether it was Dallas or the Clippers. But here they are with a chance to go home and take a 3-2 lead. And if they do that, they're in the driver's seat. Now you got 2 games to win one, right? Whomever wins game 5 in that series in particular, I like their chances. What we've seen in that series is home court advantage doesn't matter. Both teams have been able to go on the other's home floor and win. And that means that you're not safe in a 7-game series. So game 5 is going to be huge. Game 5 is going to be huge. If OKC can steal that, I think they can ultimately win that series. If they lose game 5, I think they lose this series in 6. I think they lose it in 6. So that's going to be a big one. As for the Celtics, just quickly, they just need to go home and take care of business. They haven't really had a strong series after the crazy way he ended the series against the Heat. Derek White has been absent in this second series. They need him to just step up and help close them out. Really, it's been, the Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown show essentially in this second round. They've had to carry the load for the most part. You've gotten some guys like Peyton Pritchard to chip in, and you've gotten, some of the other guys to step up here and there. Drew Holiday was huge in game. I want to say it was game 3, I believe it was game 3. He was huge. So you've gotten some of the other guys to step up, but Derek White has been absent after having a massive series against the Heat. He's really gone dark. So they need him to wake the hell up because they can't win an NBA championship without him. They can't beat the Knicks without him, let alone winning a championship without him. So he's going to have to step up his game and get back to some semblance of consistency. I'm not telling him he's got to go nuclear like he did against the Heat, but he's going to have to wake up. He's been pretty much dormant here of late. But I expect him to close the Cavs out in 5, whether Donovan Mitchell plays or not. If Spider's out, then should be a rout. If he plays, they should keep it close, but I expect the Celtics to defend their home court, something that they haven't always done. But similar to the first series where they took care of the Heat in 5, I expect them to do the same to the Cavaliers. This game is playing right now. Similar to what I said about OKC and Dallas, this game 5 is pivotal, not because of the home court advantage aspect, because neither team has won on their home floor. So technically speaking, if that trend continues, then the Timberwolves will win this series in 7, right? On the road. But the Nuggets are a champion. They've shown the heart of a champion after going down 0-2 and looking like they had no answers for the Timberwolves whatsoever. They go back to Minnesota and pretty much beat them up good, right? Really kind of show why they're the world champions, the defending world champions. And so if they can come home, make it 3 in a row, I think they finish them out in 6. If they lose this game and Minnesota's able to restore some type of order, they could win it in 6. It's crazy that this series has gone the way that it's gone, but no Mike Conley tonight. We'll see if that makes a difference or not. So Nickeil Alexander-Walker gets the start, and we'll see what happens. Joker, it's been night and day at home in this series for him. Same for Jamal Murray, and Gordon, to me, has been the X factor in this series. When he plays really well, the guy went 11 of 12 in game 4. Like, are you kidding me? Missed one shot. I think he went 5 of 5 or 5 of 6 from 3 and scored like 29 points. He's a stat stuffer. So it's like 29 points, 7 boards, 6 assists, 3 blocks, and 4 steals. That's the kind of stat line Aaron Gordon puts up. And he's been massive in this postseason, but in this particular series, he's been outstanding, especially the last 2 games. So I think he's going to be the difference tonight. If he plays well, they're going to need more out of Michael Porter Jr. too. He hasn't really hasn't really been a big factor in the home games, especially. But you can say the same about Jamal Murray and Joker. They didn't play well in the first 2 games either. So going to need those guys to step up, but we'll see what happens in the game tonight. Then the Knicks and the Pacers. Let's talk about that game we just watched and that series. I love the NBA playoffs. I've given you a multitude of reasons why everything is magnified. You know, nothing slides, right? You can't get away with anything. Like the Pacers were careless with the basketball tonight. They paid for it. The Pacers did not rebound the basketball tonight. And the Knicks have been one of the best offensive rebounding teams in this postseason. They did it against the Sixers. They're doing it again against the Pacers. You give up offensive rebounds, you pay for it in the postseason. But I also love it because of, one, the chippiness and the physicality. You saw some of that in this game with the chippiness and some of the technical fouls, even though I think the NBA has gotten exponentially softer than it once was when I was growing up. But still, you get the chippiness factor. And then the thing I think I love the most is the adjustments. You have to adjust in the postseason, and nobody's had to adjust more than the Knicks this postseason because of all of the injuries, right? Mitchell Robinson, Bogdanovich goes down. Then OG Anunoby goes down. And then you had to deal with you had to deal with your best player, Jalen Brunson, having a little bit of an injury too. And so they've had to mix and match parts, play guys. Like, they had no intentions of playing Precious Achiuwa the type of minutes he's playing. Alec Burks hadn't been off the bench in over a month, and he's had to play substantial minutes in this series. And then the biggest adjustment obviously made going into Game 5 was starting Miles McBride, and Deuce McBride showed up huge in this game. Started out hot like fire, and really gave them the spark that they needed when they got off to a somewhat of a slow start in the game, shooting 5 of 14. Then they go 9 of 9, go on this ridiculous run, take the lead, and really never look back in the game. They never trailed again after taking that lead in the first quarter. And it was an outstanding performance by Brunson, who we know is fully capable. And he's showing why Knicks fans were, telling me before the series he was already a superstar. He was not at that point, but he's planting his flag right now, his superstar flag right now as we speak. He's done it over the life of these 2 series, and he's showcased his skills. And I think it's pretty safe to say that no matter what happens, if they advance to the Eastern Conference Finals, Jalen Brunson has already solidified himself as a bona fide superstar in this league with his play in this postseason. Hartenstein has been ridiculous. His ability to crash the glass has been on full display, but he's filled up the stat sheet too, right? They really don't have an answer for what he's doing as a rebounder, the little floater in the lane, as a facilitator, as a passer from that high post position. He's been killing them. He's been money from there. So, he almost had a triple-double in like Game 3, I think it was. Like, this dude has been ridiculous for the Knicks, and he continues to shine. He had like 10 offensive rebounds tonight. At one point, he had more offensive rebounds than the Pacers had rebounds total as a team, which is, I've never heard of anything like that before in my life. Once you get past like 5 or 6, like, it's nothing for a dude to have 3 offensive rebounds early in the game and the other team only has 2. Yeah. No, we're talking, he has 8 offensive rebounds. They have 7 rebounds as a team, and we're deep into the second quarter. Are you kidding me? For the Pacers, I would exclusively go to 2 guys guarding Jalen Brunson. It'd be TJ McConnell, and it'd be oh my God, I forgot the guy's name that played with this, that was drafted by the Celtics. I think I'd go exclusively to those 2. I know you got to steal some minutes with Nembhard guarding. He can't guard Jalen Brunson. He is just mutilating him mercifully. I mean, this is just hard to watch what he's doing to Andrew Nembhard. And it's not like Nembhard can't guard and he's not giving great effort. He's just killing him. And McConnell makes him work. The tall brother from Boston, I don't know why I can't think of his name. He kills me because he keeps letting Brunson get to his left hand. Like, don't let him turn the corner, which is the problem Nembhard keeps having. Is he's just letting him turn the corner. But don't let him get to his left. Like, if you force him right, he's going to probably stop, pivot, and shoot the fadeaway, which is what you want. And if he makes it, you live with the result. Don't let him go left. I know it's easier said than done, but I would overplay him to his left, force him right, and make him beat me going to his right. And if he beats me going to his right, so be it. Naismith, thank you. Naismith, Casper the Barbarian. Naismith. He's doing a really solid job on him, but he's got to stop letting him turn the corner on him and get to his left hand. It's too easy when he gets to his left. He's almost impossible to stop if you let him get to his left hand. So they got to do a better job of crowding him, forcing him right, and seeing what he does going to his right. Because usually he stops, turns, and either finds someone or shoots the fadeaway or pulls up from about 16 free throw line extended. But he doesn't try to get all the way to the rim a lot of times from his right hand because that's not his dominant hand. You let him get to his left and he's going all the way to the rim, and it's going to be hard for you to stop him. Here's the biggest reason why the Pacers won't win this series. You can't win a series when your best player is comfortable with taking 4 shots in the first half and 9 for the game. And this has gone on for all 3 games in New York. Now, game 2, he scored 34 points, but it was like a gun was to his head because of how poorly he played and how passive he was in game 1. So there was like this forced emphasis in game 2 that he had to come out and be aggressive. And then he did in game 2, but then he went to sleep in the fourth quarter again when they needed him and he started turning the ball over and doing dumb shit. Tyrese Halliburton strikes me as a guy that's afraid of the big moment. And when shit gets real in New York, he's passive. He's not looking for a shot. He's okay with his teammates, taking all the shots, giving it up, not getting it back. What the hell was that shit tonight? 4 shots in the first half, bro, while the other team's superstar is going ape shit on you. You don't try to match. You don't try to get aggressive. While your team is falling behind by double figures, you don't say, hey, let me get a couple shots up. Let me get more aggressive. Let me seek out my shot. Let me go and find some fouls, get to the free throw line. Let me do something to stem the tide. Nope. I'm going to just continue to fade to black, kind of blend in with the rest of the team, let other guys shoot the basketball, give it up, not fight to get it back. I don't want it. You take it. That's bullshit. And to shoot 9 shots on the road in a decisive game 5, are you kidding me? He doesn't want it. He don't want it bad enough. And then he'll go home and he'll try to take over and he'll play badass and he'll score 29 or he'll score 33 and they'll probably win. But then he'll come back in game 7 and he'll have stage fright again. He'll have stage fright again. You can't win a series when your best player decides that he's just one of the guys. Can't win a series that way. So, anyway, I digress. Let's get to our first segment of the show. Let's really dive in now. Let's dig in. And of course, I am referring to the gym dropping session. Let me drop this gym on your melon. Open your mind, let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man, Louie T-double-E. Let me open you up. Get you thinking a little bit. And what this gym dropping session is going to double as an in case you missed it as well. We're going to double up because I haven't had a in case you missed it in a while. And there was a lot of news that happened since the last time we were live together. I think our last podcast episode together was Wednesday last week. It is now Tuesday, so it's almost been a week. So a lot has transpired since then. So I wanted to kind of dig in. I want to kind of dig in to everything that has gone on, touch on it a little bit. So let's put our hands on a lot of stuff tonight, shall we? Let's do that. So in case you missed it, Cardinals sign Zay Jones, wide receiver, to a 1-year, $4.25 million deal. Now, the significance of this is he just went on a nice little tour around the NFL to some really impactful teams. Dallas, Kansas City, the Titans, I believe, or the Chargers. He made a bunch of stops, but ultimately signed with the Arizona Cardinals. We'll see what kind of an impact he has on that offense. And maybe in his mind, maybe the money didn't match. I mean, $4.25 million isn't a ton of money, but for a team like Dallas, who's a little bit strapped for cash, maybe that was a little bit more than they were hoping he'd be willing to sign for. But I think he just went where he felt like the opportunities were going to be a little bit more. When you look at Arizona, yeah, they drafted Marvin Harrison Jr., and they got the second-year Stanford wide receiver, Wilson, but Zay Jones can go in there and really have an impact, right? They don't really have anybody else after Marvin Harrison Jr. and the Wilson kid. So in his mind, he probably said, there's more opportunities here for me to get involved in the offense than it is in, say, Dallas or even Kansas City, where they got a bunch of receivers, right? He would have just been another dude. So it makes sense that he went to Arizona, but, we'll see if that ends up being a good fit for him or not. In case you missed it, Bill Belichick is reportedly going to be a part of, or excuse me, I moved the screen. He's still in the gym dropping session. He is going to be a part of the Manning cast permanently as a guest this upcoming season. Now, let me ask you guys this. I was a huge Manning cast fan when it first came out. One, because I was running from the ESPN broadcast with, I want to say it was Steve Levy, Louis Riddick, and somebody else. I was running from that broadcast like the plague. So naturally, the Manning cast kind of bailed me out at a time where I was desperate. That telecast, it wasn't as bad as some of the others that ESPN with Booger and Jason Witten and all. It wasn't as bad as that, but it just wasn't satisfactory, And they came at a time when I was desperate for an alternative. But when they replaced that group with Joe Buck and Troy Aikman, I was like, okay, I'm good now. Like I don't need the Manning cast anymore, and I haven't been back since. Are you still watching that? Was that a fad? Did you just tap in early to see what it was about, and then you went back to the regular broadcast? Are you still watching the Manning cast? I haven't been really hearing any buzz. Like I remember the first year when they first started, Marshawn Lynch was lit up there, and he was trying to get them to drink, and it was just a crazy environment. Obviously, and Eli was cussing, and they caught a couple of hot mics. They cleaned up all of those glitches. Obviously, when you're just starting something out, it's going to be a little rough around the edges. And that's when the product is its best. They've kind of gotten everything under control now. But what I ultimately, as a diehard football fan, what I ultimately found myself not being okay with is that too often they're talking to guests and they're getting away from the action on the field. And things would happen, like penalties would happen. And, you don't want to be rude if you have a guest and they're talking. You don't want to cut them off. So if there's a personal foul penalty, you're not going to stop the person who you have on as a guest from talking so that you can announce that there's been a penalty called. And you can't see that and you don't hear it. And I just found myself not being as locked into the game. So I kind of backed off of the Manning cast. But Belichick he's such similar to Nick Saban. I'm captivated by what those guys have to say. I tend to listen a little bit more intently when it comes from Nick Saban or Bill Belichick. So him being up there, Belichick I've been told he's a funny guy, and I've seen he's got sort of a dry personality and humor. But he also says some pretty impactful and profound things. I don't know. I might check it out this year just because Belichick's up there, but more likely than not, I won't. Are you guys, even checking out the Manning cast anymore? Let me know down in the comment section. I'd be really interested to know. But Belichick is going to be a permanent guest this year. on the Manning Cast as he continues to kind of figure out what life after football looks like for him. He's still not done with coaching. I think he's going to try to get back into the game next year, but for this offseason, he's going to try to, fill the void, stay relevant, and this is one of the ways he's going to do that. In case you missed it, let me go ahead and get this somber news out of the way. Excuse me, I forgot to do this on a separate show. AJ Smith, former GM in the NFL, longtime Chargers GM, last major gig in the NFL was with the Commanders, or at that time, the Redskins. He was there for like a 2-year stint as a front office consultant, 2013 and 14, if I'm not mistaken. His son ultimately came on board, and that's part of the reason why he came to Washington. His son, Kyle, was a part of that staff. And Kyle ultimately kind of rose through the ranks in Washington and was one step away from being a GM. Then Ron Rivera came in and pushed him out, and he went to Atlanta as an assistant GM, where he still remains. But his father, AJ Smith, kind of paved the way for him in the league. Long-time front office man. And, Chargers fans have a little bit of disdain for AJ Smith, but I think all the real Chargers fans will tell you that they haven't been relevant like they were under any other general manager like they were with AJ Smith. He constructed some of the best Charger teams in recent memory. Now, he also broke those teams up and made a lot of moves that Chargers fans weren't as thrilled with, but they should have made it to at least one Super Bowl under the leadership of AJ Smith. And he constructed some outstanding rosters. Whether you like him or you don't like him, his eye for talent was definitely one that was top notch, including some of the undrafted guys he was able to bring in to the fold with the Chargers. AJ Smith gone at the age of 75. Prayers and thoughts go out to the Smith family, including Kyle Smith, former member of the Washington Redskins family. Once a member of the family, always a member of the family. So prayers are with him and his family at this tough time. In case you missed it, Jets tried to hire someone who would be essentially a replacement for offensive coordinator Nathaniel Hackett. Now, I find this to be hilarious. Hilarious. Here's why, right? So, this is the second year in a row, and this freaks me out, right? This freaks me out because he is another one of these dudes that has gotten a reputation of being like an offensive mind, right? A sharp offensive mind. But I mean, how sharp is he really? He reminds me a lot of Adam Gase, not from a personality standpoint. Adam Gase, I think, like had Asperger's or something. He just seemed weird around people, right? Adam Gase is very comfortable in his skin, and he's got a very eccentric personality, which is why I think he meshes so well with Aaron Rodgers. Boy, is he a piece of work. Rodgers is, which we've been told by various teammates over the years, but yikes. He's something else. Anyway, that's a different topic for another day. But now that's 2 years in a row Nathaniel Hackett was hired because of his ties to Aaron Rodgers, and in feeling like in order to get Rodgers, you had to get Hackett first. That was the way to lure Rodgers to your team. The Broncos hired Nathaniel Hackett as their head coach, thinking he'd be able to get and land Aaron Rodgers in Denver. Obviously, that fell through. Rodgers went back to Green Bay and for one more year, and he was awful in Denver, was Nathaniel Hackett. Awful, right? One of the worst offenses we've seen in recent memory, right? They were abysmal. And that train wreck was on television, I think, 5 or 6 times that year, and we just had to stomach it. And it was hilarious but it was also painstakingly tough to watch. We sat through, I think it was a 10-11 game, or 11-10 game. What was the Colts and Broncos game that went to overtime? What was the score in that game? Boy, was that a shit show. Yeah, it was some bad ones, man. So then he gets, remember, the Broncos kind of shit all over him. Mainly it was Sean Payton who shit all over him. And in an article that was written about Payton when he came to Denver first, and he said this was like one of the worst coaching jobs I've ever seen. Hackett goes to the Jets. They're on Hard Knocks. You kind of get to see him a little bit. I think I allowed the Hard Knock show to cloud my judgment on him. I said, hey, maybe he's not a bad guy, right? He's got this personality. He seems like a smart guy and fun to be around. He's garbage. And what was abundantly clear was he's only good when Aaron Rodgers is his quarterback. Similar to Adam Gase is only good when Peyton Manning was his quarterback. The reason I respect Josh McDaniels, he's a terrible head coach, not a leader of men, but he knows ball and he can get guys to play well, no matter who the quarterback is. You can't say the same for Nathaniel Hackett. They brought him in because he was comfortable with Rodgers. Rodgers was comfortable with him. Rodgers goes down week 1, and now Nathaniel Hackett has to prove what he's actually worth because there's no Aaron Rodgers. And for the second year in a row, he failed miserably. And it was so bad last season that the Jets were like, can we get his ass the hell out of here? They wanted to bring somebody in, not get rid of Hackett because you can't, because Rodgers is there. And Rodgers has the Jets essentially by the scrotum, which we talked about when he first got there. They're not going to release his boy, right? They're going to keep him on staff and on payroll, but they wanted to bring in a real offensive-minded guy so that when Rodgers was no longer there, they could just smoothly transition into the next guy who was already there and he was already implementing his stuff. But they weren't able to do that. And I don't know if Rodgers was going for that shit anyway. Like I said, Rodgers got them by the balls. He's calling the shots in New York right now, is Aaron Rodgers. So I just find that hilarious that Nathaniel Hackett, for the second year in a row, has been a team has tried to run him out of town because of how awful he was without Aaron Rodgers. Good luck with that if you're the Jets. In case you missed it, Antoine Winfield Jr. gets a 4-year, $84.1 million contract, 45 of it guaranteed, which makes him the highest paid defensive back in the NFL. And take it a step further, he's the first safety to have that label of highest paid player as a defensive back in the NFL. Normally, highest paid defensive back means you're a corner. First time a safety has been the highest paid secondary member in the NFL. Good for Antoine Winfield Jr. He was coming off of a ridiculous season with some crazy statistics. Forced fumbles, interceptions, pass breakups, tackles, you name it. He did it. He was outstanding. He was everywhere. The Bucs had no choice but to franchise tag him. That felt like almost putting him in a holding pattern. They knew they were going to find a way to get a long-term deal done with him, and they ultimately did, making him the highest paid defensive back in the NFL. So good for Antoine Winfield Jr. I still don't know how he was not an all-pro this year. I don't even know if he made it to the Pro Bowl, which, again, travesty. Anyway, I digress. Speaking of getting to the bag boys, what you gonna do? I always laugh when I see that Wendy's commercial with the bag boys. Jared Goff. Who would have thought? Who would have thought, in case you missed it, who would have thought that Jared Goff 3 years ago would be in a position 3 years later to be the second highest paid player in the NFL behind Joe Burrow. Who would have thought? I'm looking. I'm pretty sure Jared Goff, when he got traded from the Rams to the Lions, what's that Netflix movie with your boy where he's like, "Who would have thought us? Who'd have thought?" Right? And he's talking to himself. He's like, "Not me," right? And he's like, "Who would have thought we'd actually be here talking about Jared Goff signing a 4-year, $212 million. Let me say that one more time. 4 years, $212 million extension for Jared Goff. $170 million of it fully guaranteed. Blessings on top of blessings on top of blessings for Jared Goff. My goodness. Second highest paid player in the NFL behind one Joseph Burrow. I am shocked that we are at this point, but I'm not shocked that Jared Goff got this deal. We all saw the writing on the wall after he was maybe a fourth down drop by, what was the name of the receiver who had a rough game, go of it in the NFC Championship game? Man, what's the former Rams receiver name? I can't remember his name, but he had some big drops, including that fourth down drop that I think would have cinched it for the Lions. Whatever the case may be, Goff played his ass off in the postseason, played his ass off the last 2 years when we've seen this resurgence from the Lions, and he's been a huge part of it. Like, without Jared Goff, there is no resurgence. There is no restore the roar in Detroit, and they aren't where they are right now. He is the epitome of that grit that they talk about in Detroit. Excuse me, because a lot of people kind of gave up on Jared Goff, including Rams head coach. Excuse me. Damn, why am I Sean McVay? Sean McVay couldn't stand the sight of Jared Goff by the time he got to the end of his run in LA. He wanted him gone that bad. It was crazy, right? You would have thought Jared Goff, did something with his wife, or at that time his fiance. You would have thought that Jared Goff violated him in some way, the way he was treating him on the way out. It was ridiculous. And I remember when that trade was consummated and Brad Holmes took over as the Lions GM, he reached back and grabbed Jared Goff, and I thought, oh, that's cute. You're going to lose a lot of football games over the next 2 seasons. You need a guy to take that ass whooping while you're trying to rebuild. And you don't want your new young quarterback to take those ass whoopings, right? So you bring Jared Goff over. You could do a hell of a lot worse than Jared Goff, right? Former number 1 overall pick. He'll give you some competent QB play, allow you to not be the worst team in football, be mediocre, and you'll get your, future quarterback, future signal caller down the road, right? Boy, was I wrong. Boy, was I wrong. And the first year was to be expected. They struggled, but they were turning over the roster. They were kind of getting the pieces of the puzzle where they needed to be. Year 2 started slow again, but then they revved it up, finished the season hot like fish grease. Beat Green Bay in week 18 in a meaningless game for them because Seattle had won earlier in the day, and so they had nothing to play for. But Green Bay had everything to play for, and Green Bay won. They were in. If they lost, they were going home with Detroit, and Detroit said, "Well, you coming home with us." And they beat those boys in Lambeau, and it set the stage for last season. Lions came out like gangbusters. Jared Goff was on a whole nother level, right? It was flashes of 2018 all over again when Jared Goff led the Rams to the Super Bowl. He was outstanding, and he's been like this steadying, calming force offensively for them. And as much as I, would love to say, I don't trust Jared Goff in XYZ situations, he showed me a lot in the postseason last year because he had to make plays, and he made plays. And unfortunately, Josh Reynolds, thank you, Abel Ambrosio. Josh Reynolds didn't make the plays when they were there to be made, and it wasn't just Josh Reynolds. The defense collapsed. You spot the defense a 24-7 lead in the first half. You expect them to hold on, but you don't stop scoring as an offense either. And we've already done that song and dance about criticizing the Lions head coach Dan Campbell for being uber aggressive and not taking the points in a number of situations in that game. But that's who they've been. That's always who they've been. You can't fault them for being who they have been. He stayed true and authentic to who he has been throughout his entire tenure, and he did not change despite the moment. So kudos to him for that. But you could argue it also it cost them in that game. But Goff was outstanding, and here we are, 4 years, $212 million extension. Wowzers. This extension has sort of a ripple effect, though. And I'm mainly staring at two teams in particular. One is the Dallas Cowboys, because Dak Prescott, as we know, is up for an extension. He's on the last year of his contract. The Cowboys cannot use the franchise tag on him, as they've already done so. So they cannot use it on him again. So he's essentially playing out the final year of his contract. If he leaves in free agency next year, the Cowboys are on the hook for a massive amount of money, and they're going to lose the best quarterback that they've had since Tony Romo. Well, really the only quarterback they've had since Tony Romo. But they've got a decision to make, and the money just went up because of Jared Goff. Now, is Dak Prescott's contract going to be more than that of Jared Goff? Probably not, but he raised the floor on that Dak Prescott deal. He may not have raised the ceiling necessarily on that deal. Like, Dak's probably not going to be viewed as better than Jared Goff, because Jared Goff's, one, been to a Super Bowl, and two, been to an NFC Championship game and almost took the Lions to the Super Bowl. Dak's never been out of the second round. So I don't think that negotiation is going to work where you go, hey, my guy's better than Jared Goff. So he probably won't get more than Jared Goff on an annual basis, but he might come in just under Jared Goff, right? He probably slots. Jared Goff is roughly making $53 million a year now on this extension. Dak's probably going to be making 52.5, right? So yikes, ouch, zoiks, all of that good stuff. And then the other team that probably needs to be proactive is the Green Bay Packers, because while Jordan Love has only shown you in a very small sample size that, hey, I'm capable, and he went to the playoffs, won a playoff game on the road, and almost went to Levi Stadium and upset the San Francisco 49ers, you're not sure if he's going to do it again. I'm a big proponent of, hey, that was nice, do it again. However, you got to be proactive. What we've seen over the life of the NFL, especially here of late, is you have to get out in front of these deals. Like, remember when Buffalo was the first team? There were all of those quarterbacks from that 2018 draft, right? It was Allen, Baker Mayfield, and Lamar Jackson. And Jackson still hadn't been paid yet. I don't think Baker was looking for a deal yet. I think he was just looking for a home at that time. I felt like there was one more quarterback that was looking to get paid at that time. I can't remember who it would have been, but the Bills said, hey, let's just get out in front of this thing, and let's just be the first one. Because when you're first, you pay less. Doesn't it feel good to pay less? The longer you wait, the price goes up. As a wise man once said, yesterday's price is not today's price, okay? The price of the brick has gone up. Yesterday's price is not today's price. If you're the Packers, you got to be proactive. Again, he's not going to make Jared Goff money, but the floor on his deal went up significantly with this Jared Goff deal. Because you could look at the Joe Burrow or the Patrick Mahomes or any of the top tier quarterbacks that are getting paid big money and say, hey, you're not even close to that, bro. But Jared Goff, but if I'm Jordan Love's representatives, I'm looking at Jared Goff and saying, shit, my guy's just as good as Jared Goff. Now, he hasn't been to a Super Bowl, but give him some time. Give him some time. Just like Jared Goff went toe-to-toe with the 49ers, my guy went toe-to-toe with the 49ers and almost got to the NFC Championship game. My guy needs to be paid. So the floor has been raised for Jordan Love. Packers need to go ahead and get that shit done this offseason before the season starts. Because if he has a massive year again, and let's say he wins another playoff game, let's say he doesn't make it to the NFC Championship game, but he makes it to the divisional round and they lose another close game, bro, that's 2 years in a row we've won a playoff game with Jordan Love at quarterback. Now you got to break him off. You got to break him off. When you could get a deal that kind of fits where he is right now, you wait till next year and you're going to have to pay him big boy money. Big. And I get it. What if he doesn't play the way he played last year? What if he regresses and you get caught in a Carson Wentz-like deal? That's a part of the game. I'm willing to take that risk to save the money that you'll save yourself if you get it done now. I mean, you know the kid. You know what he's got from a mental makeup, the leadership qualities, the work ethic. You know what this kid's about. You've seen him in your facility and your building for the last, 4 or 5 years. You know what he is. I don't know. They got to make a decision. In case you missed it, Kirk Cousins says there's no beef with the Atlanta Falcons. Goes on to say having hard feelings isn't helpful in this situation. Now, for those of you who don't know what I'm referring to, let's kind of go back and break this thing down. So, Kirk Cousins was signed to a big deal this offseason by the Atlanta Falcons. And immediately that made the Atlanta Falcons, I think, a playoff team in the NFC, especially playing in one of the weakest divisions in football, in the NFC South. So it was all high fives. Everybody's feeling good. And then the Falcons go do the unthinkable. And they go and they draft Michael Penix with the 8th overall pick in the 2024 NFL draft. Threw everyone for a loop. It was the biggest curveball we've seen in the first round in quite some time. And Kirk Cousins himself was caught off guard. There was never a discussion about the Falcons drafting a young quarterback, a successor. Kirk thought that he was coming in and with the contract he signed, he was going to be the guy and he wouldn't have to look over his shoulder. So story has it that part of the reason that Kirk didn't want to re-sign with Minnesota is because they were upfront with him about their intentions this offseason. They said, look, Kirk, even if we re-sign you, we are going to look to draft a young quarterback. Now, maybe that young quarterback isn't going to be, 11th overall, which is where the Vikings initially sat. But could it have been a second round guy? Remember, the Vikings had traded up into the first round. Would they have traded back into the first round with the Texans had they been able to re-sign Kirk Cousins? Maybe not, right? But if they did have that 23rd overall pick, maybe they take a quarterback there, right, at 23. The way things kind of fell, maybe a quarterback wouldn't have been available at 23, whatever the case may be. The Vikings were upfront with Kirk, and that's why they lost out on him, is they told him, hey, bro, love what you've done for us. Really appreciate your service. But if you come back, we got to start planning for the future, and we're going to draft us a young quarterback. And he was like, oh, word? That's what's up, man. I appreciate y'all honesty. And then he went and signed with the Falcons. The Falcons did not tell Kirk Cousins of their intentions. As a matter of fact, he did not find out that they were drafting a quarterback right up until they turned the card in. They called Kirk Cousins to let him know so he wasn't caught off guard by the selection, but he still was blindsided, right? He didn't think that they were going to draft a quarterback. So naturally, his team came out and said, hey, we had no idea they were going to do this. We were totally caught off guard. One part of the reason we left Minnesota is because they said they were drafting a young quarterback. So if we would have known that the Falcons had that intention, we wouldn't have signed here. You don't think the Falcons knew that? You don't think the Falcons knew that's why he was negotiating with them? You don't think Kirk's handlers told them, hey, Minnesota's thinking about drafting a young quarterback, so we trying to go somewhere where they're not thinking about drafting a young quarterback. Now, I wonder if there was ever a discussion about not drafting one. I think Kirk's camp just assumed that the Falcons were elated to get Kirk and that they were never going to think about drafting another quarterback, but instead try to get Kirk some more pieces, whether it be offensively or defensively, to help him win. They never thought that the Falcons were going to draft a quarterback after inking Kirk Cousins to a 4-year deal. So I don't think they even asked, was that something that they were thinking about doing? They just assumed that they wouldn't do it. Meanwhile, Minnesota was up front with him like, yo, this is what we thinking about doing, man. If you ain't with it, you ain't with it. But we just letting you know where we at. So Kirk was on a podcast here recently, and he said, look, I ain't got no beef with the Falcons. And, having hard feelings with them isn't going to kind of make the situation any better. It's not going to be helpful. That's going to be an awkward quarterback room. We already know Kirk Cousins is a guy that kind of suffers from self-confidence. We saw the quarterback documentary where he consistently on a weekly basis met with the team psychologist. That's big for Kirk Cousins because mentally, if he's not right, he ain't shit. And we can say that about any player, but I don't know how many quarterbacks visit with the team psychologist on a weekly basis. Again, I made mention of this when I watched the quarterback documentary for the first time. And I talked about how Kirk Cousins, the first guy that he would speak to when things would happen wouldn't be his teammates, wouldn't be the head coach. When they had that big comeback against Indy, the first guy that he spoke with, the first guy that really congratulated, that he sat down and had a conversation, was the team psychologist. So this could really affect Kirk Cousins because he's been in this situation before in Washington. And he didn't want to go through that again, clearly. And on that podcast that he was on, he was asked, in hindsight, if you know what you now know, if you knew then what you know now about the Falcons' intentions, would you have signed there? And of course, he did the politically correct thing, and he's like, I mean, it doesn't do us any good to play that revisionist history game. I could play the hypothetical game, but it doesn't really, solve anything. Translation: hell no, I wouldn't have signed here if I knew they were going to do this shit. I had other teams that were clocking me, that were interested, that wouldn't have done this shit. And had I known that they were going to do, I might as well have gone back to Minnesota if they were going to do that shit. So, yeah, he feels some type of way. I wonder if that's going to make the energy weird in that quarterback room with Michael Penix Jr. And the Falcons are fully prepared to sit Michael Penix Jr. for 4 years, 4 to 5 years. That's insane, bro. That is insane. The man was in college for like 5 years, 6 years. And now you asking a 24-year-old, well, however old Michael Penix Jr. is, to sit for another 4 years before he can get a chance to start. Like, this man ain't 21 and he's sitting and he'll be 25, like Jordan Love is. Whatever Jordan Love's age is, I assume Jordan Love is somewhere in that 20, when he finally got the reins last year, he was probably in that 24, 25 range. How old is Jordan Love? Let me look and see. That's wild, man. That if Kirk plays well, if he stays healthy and upright, Michael Penix Jr. might not be playing until he's 27, 28 years old. Jordan Love. Let's see how old Jordan Love is. Jordan Love is 25 years old. So he essentially got an opportunity to start in his age 24 season. So that's not going to be the case and that was sitting for 4 years, right? Sitting roughly for 4 years behind Aaron Rodgers. Jordan Love started at his age 24 year. Michael Penix Jr. is coming into the league at his age 24. I'm saying he's probably 23 right now. Michael Penix Jr. He's 24 right now. And he just turned 24 in May. So he literally just turned 24 about a week ago. So that's wild, bro. That's wild. That 28 years old. Like if Kirk plays for 4 years in Atlanta. That's wild, man. That is crazy. That situation, they unnecessarily turned that into an awkward and weird situation in Atlanta. Like, what were you thinking, man? That doesn't even make sense to me. We could spend a whole podcast on that decision. That's a baffling decision. In case you missed it, Bills sign wide receiver Marquez Valdez-Scantling to a 1-year, $4.5 million deal. So you see what the 1-year going rate is. Zay Jones on a 1-year, 4.25, MVS on a 1-year, $4.5 million deal. So the Bills have done something at receiver. I don't know exactly what. I don't know if you guys have caught wind of Keon Coleman in these press conferences and interviews he's doing. He just had another one with Shefty where he's hilarious. They're eating him up in Buffalo right now, pause. And I get it. I hope the kid's good. I hope he proves me wrong because I wasn't a huge Keon Coleman fan, right? I wasn't as high on him. And a lot of people told me I was tripping throughout the process. I hope they're right and I'm wrong. And he proves to be really good for the Buffalo Bills. But Keon Coleman and MVS and Curtis Samuel, when you're trying to win a Super Bowl, that's not the group I'm looking to trot out there. Now they got some tight ends, they got a couple running backs. You know, you still got Josh Allen. We're gonna find out how good Josh Allen is. He's gonna have to earn his money this year. I'm gonna say that much. I don't love that move. You were better off getting Zay Jones, to be honest with you. But let's see if MVS can all of a sudden figure out how to catch the football in like year 7 of his career, because he couldn't catch in Green Bay, couldn't catch in Kansas City. It's even colder in Buffalo. I don't see that changing this year, but we'll see. In case you missed it, the Bears named Caleb Williams their number 1 pick, the number 1 overall pick in the 2024 NFL draft. They're QB1 for the upcoming season. So they didn't waste any time naming him their starter. They know what they drafted him to be. They're not playing around with it. They've named the kid the starter, and we'll see how that situation unfolds. Really intrigued to see what the season looks like for the Bears. They've done everything in their power to really give him a sort of a springboard rookie season. They've given him all the pieces he needs to be successful. Now let's see what Caleb Williams is able to do with all of that support that Justin Fields was never given in Chicago. That's going to be a fascinating situation with Caleb Williams in Chicago. So he's QB1 for the Bears. And I assume that Bo Nix will be QB1 in Denver. I'm assuming that Jaden Daniels will be QB1 in Washington. And you'll see a number of these first-round quarterbacks. There were 6 of them, mind you. 6 of them will be day 1 starters. I don't think you're going to see, obviously, Michael Penix Jr. starting day 1. And you're not going to see Drake May, I don't think, start day 1. And I know a lot of you heard what Patriots head coach Gerard Mayo said about Drake May. I think that was blown out of proportion. People were really being over the top. I saw Plaxico Burress and some other people being hypercritical of the comments and really using what Mayo said. Like, wasn't that the prevailing thought, that when you drafted him, he was going to need time and he was going to need work? What was Mayo's? I mean, Mayo didn't have to say what he said, but he was being honest. Like, he's got a lot of work to do. And he said the kid's putting in the work, and what you guys don't see is he's staying after and he's putting in the work, and he's doing everything we've asked him to do. But it's going to be a process. That's why they got Jacoby Brissett. He didn't have to play right away. I don't understand what the big deal is. Like, everyone knew, like, if you draft this kid, he's probably not starting right away. That doesn't change the fact that he might have the highest ceiling of any of the quarterbacks taken in the first round this year. That doesn't change. He's just not as ready as the other guys. That's all. Anyway, I digress. So let's transition into our social media maneuvers. I'm a midnight marauder, right? I'm all over the place. And so the NFL has released little, tidbits of the schedule just to whet your palate a bit for the onslaught that's coming your way tomorrow. As we are on the eve on the schedule release. So in case you haven't been tracking these games, here's all the games that we know of at this point. Now, obviously, we're going to know all of the games by tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. But throughout the course of the day tomorrow, you'll probably know a third of the NFL schedule. It'll be released prior to 8 o'clock. And then you'll get the other 2/3 that night. But here's what we know in week 1 so far. So NFL released the Thursday night kickoff game, which is sort of a Sunday night game, technically speaking. They don't consider it an actual Thursday night game, but it's played on Thursday, which is still weird to me, but whatever, right? Because technically the first Thursday night game of the year is that they consider Thursday night, which is on Amazon, is week 2. So the first game is on Sunday Night Football, which is on NBC. And that's going to be Baltimore Ravens at Kansas City. It's a rematch of the AFC Championship game. Chiefs at home, they'll be dropping the banner. And just like last year, they could easily lose that game. Remember, they lost to the Lions week 1 last year, if you recall. I think it was 20-19, something to that effect. And the Ravens will be looking for a measure of revenge. We'll see if they can exact that or not. But Baltimore, Kansas City should be a really, really fascinating kickoff to the 2024 NFL season. Remember, the very next day, for the first time in NFL history, we will have a week 1 Friday night game, as the Philadelphia Eagles will be hosting the Green Bay Packers over in Brazil. And so we will get a game on Thursday in week 1. We will get a game on Friday in week 1. Packers, Eagles from Brazil. Also in week 1, we have the Monday night game in week 1. For the second year in a row, Aaron Rodgers and the Jets will be featured on Monday Night Football right out of the gates. Now, remember last year, raucous crowd, Jets, fans are in a frenzy. Rodgers making his Jets debut. They're wearing these dope-ass throwback uniforms, and Rodgers goes down in after like the 3rd or 4th play of the game. Yikes. Now, they would ultimately come back and win that game. Shame on the Bills for pissing that game away. But they're going back to the well again this time. Rodgers returning home, as he's from the Bay Area, grew up a massive 49ers fan. I think he still holds a grudge against the 49ers for passing on him number 1 overall in that 05 draft, taking Alex Smith instead of him. He's going back, and it's been a house of horrors for him going to San Francisco. I don't even know if he's won a game there, to be honest with you. Of course he's won a game there, but he hasn't won recently when the 49ers have been good. And he'll be taking his Jets team to Levi Stadium week 1. Monday Night Football, as the Jets will take on the San Francisco 49ers. So those are all week 1 contests. Same with the Dallas Cowboys taking on the Cleveland Browns. That'll be on Fox. It'll be America's Game of the Week, 425. Why is that of any importance? Because that will mark the debut of Tom Brady's broadcasting career. So Fox is making a big deal of it. Brady already talked about that on the roast. So that was already put out there. So we'll see if Tom Brady can come onto the scene with the same type of vigor that Tony Romo did. Now, Romo's stardom has cooled off considerably to the point now where people are like, hey, Tony Romo stinks. I mean, how fast did that happen or what? I mean, good gracious, they turned on him in an instant. But Tom Brady will be making his debut as a broadcaster. So that's the 425 America's Game of the Week. Fox, Cowboys at Browns. So that's also a week 1 matchup. Week 2, we got a couple of week 2 matchups that we do know about. Cincinnati at Kansas City is a CBS 425 America's Game of the Week, essentially, matchup. And I saw a lot of Cincinnati Bengals fans making a joke about this, like, oh, NFL making sure they get this game in before Burrow gets hurt, right? Ha ha ha. I heard your jokes. I mean, that's probably why they're doing it so soon, though, because normally this is a week 14 matchup, week 15, late in the season, because as we know, that matchup usually goes a long way in determining, same with Bills and Chiefs, or, you know, Bills and Bengals. If Joe Burrow's healthy, that's usually going a long way in determining who's going to be the number 1 seed in the AFC. And obviously, if he's hurt, then that game loses its luster. So Bengals at Chiefs, week 2. So if you're the Chiefs, right out of the gate, you're going murderer's row. The 2 best teams to me in the AFC North, in the best division in football, which is the AFC North. You're going against those teams weeks 1 and 2, both at home. You better win. You better win those games. You could theoretically split those games and be fine. You can't lose both of them, because if you start your first 2 games of the season at home, you got to know that at some point I'm coming to recoup those home games with a couple of roadies in a row, right? So you might go road, home. That's 3 out of 4 to start at home, and then the next 3 out of 4 on the road. So you can't start 0-2 or 1 and I mean, you can start 1-1, but you can't start 0-2 at home, is what I'm saying, if you're the defending champions. So and they gave you some tough ones right out of the gate. They didn't spare you at all. They treating you like a team that's trying to do something no other team has done in NFL history, and that's three-peat. They treating you like, nah, son, you ain't doing that. We gonna see. Throwing a lot of shots the Chiefs way early. That should be a fun one there. And then the first Thursday night game of the year, Amazon Prime, week 2, AFC East, family business. Buffalo Bills traveling to Miami to take on the Dolphins will be your week 2 Thursday night football game. So we have our first Thursday night game, AFC East, family business, Bills and Dolphins. And then week 7, we got another Chiefs matchup, this time a rematch of the Super Bowl, as the Kansas City Chiefs travel to San Francisco, to Levi Stadium, to take on the San Francisco 49ers in a rematch of last year's Super Bowl. That will be a week 7 matchup featured on Fox. Brady and Kevin Burkhardt on the call. So those are the matchups that we know of right now. Okay. Nothing else has been released. Anything else that you've heard is false until we get all of the rest of the tidbits from the NFL tomorrow. And they'll be coming at you fast and furious. And again, you can start to do deductive reasoning as to who you're going to play, when you're going to play them, by if you're that hard all, if you're that desperate for the schedule, just watch what other teams are putting out there. They'll tell you who they're playing, and it might be your team, right? And that's how you'll figure out, oh, we playing this team in week 5. But you can also, use that as deductive reason. Well, we got to play this team. Well, they're playing this team this week, and they're playing that team that week, and they're playing this team that week. So maybe we're playing them here, right? Like, you can kind of play that game. I don't like to play that game because it's too hard. I just wait till we find out what we got, right? But a lot of people love to do that. So if you're out there and you want to get your comment in, use the hashtag LouieTLive to have your comment read on the air. If it is pertinent, we will read and react to that comment. If you want to ensure that your comment is read on the air, super chats are the way to do so. Make sure you super chat if you want to jump straight to the front of the line. So with that said, let's jump to the comment section and see what you guys have to say. Let's see where we start tonight. John Wynn says, did the Bears do the right thing by getting rid of Fields for Caleb Williams for the number 1 overall pick? Only time will tell. I think they did. I don't think Justin Fields is going to be a top-notch quarterback in this league. So yes, I think they did the right thing, but only time will tell, right? If Justin Fields goes to Pittsburgh, blows up, becomes the next big thing at the quarterback position for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Caleb Williams flames out in Chicago, then everybody will say they made a mistake. And there are a lot of Justin Fields stands in Chicago, but the likelihood is, even if Caleb Williams doesn't pan out the way that they anticipate, it's not going to be a situation where Justin Fields goes to Pittsburgh and kills it. And so now you look like you a fool and you got egg all over your face. I don't see that happening. But I think Justin Fields will end up being a solid NFL quarterback because of his athleticism. Why can't he be like Marcus Mariota at a bare minimum, a guy that can run, use his legs, and every so often hurt you with his arm, but he's so dynamic as a runner that you have to account for that, and he can still hurt you in that regard, and maybe grow as a passer like Tyrod Taylor did, over time. Who knows? We'll see. But yes, it feels like they did the right thing in the moment, and I don't think the Bears are going to regret it no matter how it plays out. I think most people feel like they made the right decision. I would have made that decision. I can't speak for anybody else. Let's see. John says, I hope that Sam Howell will play this season. If Howell makes 10 picks or more than Geno Smith, I'm going to be mad. So pray for me. I mean, you're assuming that Sam Howell plays. I mean, if Geno Smith plays well, Sam may never see the field if he doesn't get hurt. Like Geno got hurt last year. That opened up the door a little bit for Drew Lock to get some starts and ultimately give him the confidence to leave and go to New York and have a chance to compete for a starting spot. But if Geno stays healthy and he plays the kind of football that we've seen Geno play in Seattle, Sam Howell's not getting an opportunity to play this year. So we'll see what happens. John Wynn says, Nuggets won the finals against the Heat last year, and now the Nuggets are suffering. Are they suffering? It's a 2-point game and they're up right now. So I don't know if they're suffering. It's a 2-2 series. We'll see what happens. Let's see. Ghost Rider writes, you think they can pull an upset against the Ravens? I don't know who you're referring to. And I'm not going to ask you what team because you could be Luck. So I don't know what you're talking about. Kevin writes, hey, Lou, where do you think J Love is going to land with all the other quarterback extensions coming up? I don't know if I see him getting more than Goff, but maybe that's me being optimistic. I don't think he'll get more than Jared Goff. He shouldn't get more than Jared Goff. He won't get more than Jared Goff. This is why you need to do it now. As a wise man once said, do it now. I told you, do it now. Right? If you wait, you could run the risk of him doing what Joe Flacco did to the Ravens. Remember, the Ravens had an opportunity to extend Joe Flacco prior to the 2012 season in which the Ravens went to the Super Bowl. Joe Flacco had the immaculate postseason run, 11 touchdowns, no interceptions. They go on to win the Super Bowl. Now they have to pay Joe Flacco this massive deal. He bet on himself. He won. And they had to release like 7 starters from the year prior to fit Flacco's new, inflated deal into their salary cap. Don't be the Baltimore Ravens. Okay, that's the moral of the story. Don't be the Baltimore Ravens. Be proactive. Don't be reactive. You saw what he did last year. You know the kid. He's been in your building. It's not like, this is year 3 of Jordan Love and you're still kind of getting a feel, or even year 2. Like, this isn't like, to me, the Jaguars are in a much tougher spot than the Packers are. Because Trevor Lawrence, much like Jordan Love, has won a playoff game. But unlike Trevor Lawrence, he's only had 1 year to start, and that 1 year was excellent. For Trevor Lawrence, terrible rookie season, but we all blame that on Herb, right? Second year, he's dynamic, plays well. They go to the playoffs. They win a playoff game in comeback fashion. Man, this kid looks like he's going to be legit. Year 3, deals with some injuries, takes a step back. We're not sure. So now you're like, I don't know if I want to extend you yet. Let's kind of wait on that. Let's see what happens first, right? So that's kind of where we are with those 2021 quarterbacks. And Lawrence is the only one that really seems to have a shot to get an extension from the team that drafted him. But I think he has to prove it. Whereas Love, you're out of time. They got more time with Trevor Lawrence to figure it out. You're out of time. The hourglass is running out of sand. So I wouldn't wait. Allow Jordan Love to bet on himself. He does what he did last year, but at a higher clip now that he's got more confidence, and those receivers are a year older. You bring in Josh Jacobs. This could be a really good team this year. He blows up. Now he might get more than Jared Goff. You do it now, he's not getting more than Jared Goff. He's not. He'll be more in the, I think he'll be more closer to Kyler Murray money, somewhere in that neighborhood. What did Kyler Murray get? Because I think Murray's making more money than because I think Daniel Jones and Derek Carr are making roughly the same amount of money, like right in that $40 million range. Let's see what Kyler Murray's contract looks like. He's making $46 million a year. It's Kyler. That's the kind of money. Jared Goff is making $53 million a year. So I think he's in line for that Kyler Murray type deal. That's what I see. Kyler Murray type money. Maybe a little bit north of Kyler Murray, but somewhere in that neighborhood. So no, right now he's not on par with Jared Goff. But if you wait, yeah, he might be getting Jared Goff money. I'd advise you not to do that if you're the Green Bay Packers. Kevin Imes writes, you seen the latest on Rashid Rice? Bruh's a menace off the field. Nah, I haven't. What is he getting into now? So I know about the person that was, I think, recording him like a photographer or something like that he damn near assaulted. We know about the race situation and the crash. What else did he do? Yikes. I hope he hasn't done anything else. Wow. Niners fan. Hey, Lou. I love the Pearsall pick. I don't know why everyone was so upset. Either way, we're moving off Debo after this season. So Pearsall is good depth. I like Jacob Cowing too. I like those 2 receivers that you drafted. I think people were probably upset about the pick because they probably didn't think Pearsall was worthy of a late first round pick. I was higher on him than most, so I didn't have a problem with him going where he went. I shoot back at the people that say, "Oh, he's a poor man's Deebo Samuel." No, he's not. No, he's not. Don't mistake yourself in thinking that he's that kind of player where you can give it to him on a jet sweep. Yeah, he's fast, he can run, but you don't actually see it show up on tape. He's not running by anybody. And yeah, he's a tough cookie. The catch against Charlotte is one of the best catches you'll ever see in your life. But make no mistake about it, he's not running over guys. He's not this, dynamo with the ball in his hands. He's not Deebo Samuel. So if you think you're replacing Deebo Samuel with Ricky Pearsall, you got another thing coming. So I like Jacob Cowing, though, too. The Arizona receiver. I think he's really good, and I think he's going to fit very well in that Kyle Shanahan system. So we'll see what they decide to do, moving forward. I still feel like he being Pearsall was brought in to replace Ayuk, but we'll see. I still think Deebo Samuel, to me, along with George Kittle and Trent Williams, are the heart and soul of that 49ers team. You remove a Deebo Samuel, a Trent Williams, or George Kittle, and you're removing the ribs that are protecting your heart. And at any moment, in a moment's notice, somebody like Dumb and Dumber can reach in your chest and rip your heart out if you're the 49ers, because you don't have a rib cage without those dudes. To me, that's me personally. You can survive without Brandon Ayuk. Insert Ricky Pearsall, you'll be fine. You insert Ricky Pearsall, keep Brandon Ayuk, the party don't continue on. Because Brandon Ayuk was healthy when Deebo Samuel went down and you lost 3 straight. Now, you could argue should have beat the Browns, missed a field goal there, rookie kicker, shit happens. You have no business losing to Minnesota on a Monday night, but you did. And Joe Burrow was coming back and he was starting to get into his bag and you lost that game. I get it, but I don't get it. So we'll see what happens. I love the pick myself. I don't know who's complaining about it, but those who are complaining about it clearly didn't watch Ricky Pearsall. That's how I feel about that. HTTR Carson writes, did you see the damning article written about Fields? I don't know if you're referencing the toxic environment in the 2021 Bears quarterback room. I have not yet read it, but I am going to. I am going to. It looks really salacious, looks juicy. I'm going to sink my teeth into that eventually. I started to do it and talk about it, but I'm like, I can spread this out. I don't need to necessarily do it tonight. We already had enough to talk about, but I'm definitely going to read it, see what it's talking about, and see what kind of a light it cast on those guys. The other 2 guys were veterans, so I'm assuming that Justin Fields was the one acting a fool. But I don't know. I don't want to make that assumption because I haven't read it. I haven't read it yet. But I think that was the year that Fields was a rookie. They brought in Andy Dalton to start initially. And I think Nicholas Foles was also on that roster at quarterback. I think that's what the quarterback room was. Seems like a pretty solid room to me. A couple of veterans that have been around the block a couple of times. I've never really heard those guys be bad locker room dudes. So I guess that just leaves one person right in that room. But again, it's all hearsay. Can't confirm or deny any of it. But I'm going to read it. That's for sure. HTTR Carson writes, random, but Fred Smoot sounds like Keyshawn Johnson, LOL. I don't think so. Fred's southern drawl is a little bit heavier. First of all, Keyshawn's from the West Coast. Fred is from as down south as it gets, Mississippi. They don't sound alike at all to me. Keyshawn's got that West Coast voice. Fred Smoot has got that heavy southern twang. They don't sound at all alike to me. But again, that's me. Kevin, the PRF, writes, not sure if you spoke on this. Did you hear Nick Wright's criticism of Howie Roseman because his drafts are based on media faves, so when he picks them, even when they drop, it's an A? No, I haven't heard that criticism of Howie Roseman, but I've never been a huge fan of Howie Roseman's drafts. I think what sets Howie Roseman apart is his shrewd moves in trading. Like he did a number of trades that put the Eagles in a position to have more draft capital next year, right? When there's a player on a discount or a player that's fallen out of favor at a different organization, he pounces on those opportunities, right? He's really good at maneuvering and working the phones and making things happen from a trade standpoint. But I don't necessarily love what he does from a drafting standpoint. If you look at what the Eagles have done over time, and I think they're going to fail on a few more of these draft picks. Like the Nolan Smith kid out of Georgia, I think he's going to stink. Another failed first-round pick. And there are quite a few of those, I believe, on the resume of a Howie Roseman. But, those aren't here or there. For me, it's not just the draft that defines you as a general manager, but it does go a long way in defining who you are. But Howie does a really good job of offsetting some of the mistakes. And he's got enough hits in the draft, right, to bolster his resume. But I think there are more misses in his drafts than hits. But where he makes up for those misses is what he does in the trade market and how he continues to keep the Eagles locked and stocked with picks. So the more picks you have, the more opportunities that you have to throw darts at the board, you're going to hit on some guys. And it also puts him in a position where he can take those picks, trade back, pick up more picks, and keep kicking that can down the road, as I like to say. But no, I haven't heard that theory, but not everybody loves Howie Roseman's drafts. I've heard, several people be kind of critical of Howie Roseman's drafts, including the one that we just saw. There were some people that have covered the Eagles for a very long time that weren't too thrilled about this past year's draft. But I thought it was a really good draft, personally. But we'll see what it ultimately turns out to be for the Eagles on the field. So let's get to our final segment of the show and garbage time. So I don't know if you guys saw this. We'll quickly just gloss over this. I don't want to belabor this point. But John Gruden sued the NFL back in 2021. We all remember when he got fired. He felt like he was wrongfully terminated. The league had a hit out on him because those emails that he was sending in correspondence with Bruce Allen got out, and he was saying some pretty nasty things about Roger Goodell, called him a pussy and this, that, and the third. And so, Raj wasn't going for that shit. So naturally, they went after his ass, put his head on a stick, and got him out of there. And he felt like it was a witch hunt, which it was after those, emails came out. But the problem is he can't prove it. And the courts have essentially decided that you don't really have a leg to stand on here, player. And first of all, the NFL, you really going to try to sue the NFL? Good luck with that. I wonder how Brian Flores' lawsuit went. They might have settled that one out of court. Same thing with Kaepernick. Anytime it becomes a race thing, the NFL is like, yeah, we probably should just settle this thing out of court. Like, we don't want this to drag on because we don't want the stigma to be attached to us that somehow, we're a racist league or, we're bigots. So let's just handle this, right? But when it's something like this, they're like, oh, no, we got lawyers for days, bro. We got dudes on retainer for these exact type situations. You don't really want to do this with us. Because you got long money. You John Gruden, you got long money. Your money ain't longer than our money, though. So I never thought he stood a chance in hell of winning this thing. But the courts pretty much said, bro, this ain't it. Try something else. So that'll probably be the last we hear of John Gruden, unless somebody gives him a shot to be like a consultant, you know. But as long as Roger Goodell is the commissioner, he's probably blackballed. Like, who are we kidding? You know, if you don't want the NFL to be, you know, clocking your every move, don't hire John Gruden. All right. I mean, if you want them to keep a third eye on you, and any little thing you do, you slip up, hey, we slapping you on the wrist for it. Go ahead, bring on John Gruden as some kind of a consultant. Go ahead. I dare you. I double dog dare you. You want to stay in the good graces of the NFL? Leave him be. We'll see what happens with him. Anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on the 418th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I appreciate you guys joining me. Look forward to chopping it up with you guys on Thursday, where I will have a special guest on the show. So hopefully you enjoy that. We will have the full 2024 NFL schedule to comb over, all of the primetime games, all of the big-time matchups. We will have that in front of us. We will go over that with a fine-tooth comb. Also, we will be talking NBA playoffs once again. So that will be a jam-packed show. Jam! Oh, jam! That'll be a jam-packed show. So looking forward to that. But in the meantime, y'all finish watching Nuggets, Wolves. I don't know the score in the game, but every time I've looked, it's been very close. So I'm assuming that they're either in the fourth quarter or vastly approaching the fourth quarter in a tight ball game. So I'm going to watch the rest of this. You do the same. We'll come back and we'll talk about it on Thursday. And we'll talk about if the Celtics were able to close out the Cavs. Pacers and Knicks will have had their game 6 by then. So we'll have a lot to discuss by the time OKC, Dallas would have played game 5, a pivotal game 5. So we'll have a lot to discuss on Thursday. I look forward to seeing you then. Until then, I'm your man, Louie T, signing off. You guys, take care. God bless. Good night.